look for chats on the side to see if anybody else is here.
Oh,
But yeah, all right. Well, Skeleton Crew here on Motor City Metrics. It is June 6th, 2025. I'm your host, Chris Brown. Alongside me is Yoop. We've got Relio in Minnesota. I think Yoop was in Minnesota as well.
yeah.
He's working, and Mike had an unexpected influx of euchre participants. At
He's
his
making his lucre playing euchre.
Yeah, there you go. So it's just the two of us, and we're going to discuss this last week of Tigers games. As always, this is the housekeeping portion of the show where we say, like and subscribe to all our stuff. We just hit 2,500 followers on our Tigers Minor League Report YouTube page. I don't know about the Motor City Metrics or if they're all together, but that was a pretty cool milestone. But
Absolutely.
if you're not following already, you might as well. And if you listen to podcasts, you know how to get podcasts. I don't feel a need to tell everybody, but whatever. But yeah, here we are. We're discussing when we last spoke. The Tigers were heading into a weekend series against the Kansas City Royals, and that series was okay. It started out really fun. We got home runs from Dingler and Green and Torkelson in the same game, and then two very annoying games that ended up 1-0. One where they lost when Scooble started, one where they won when Montero started, right?
Yes, sir.
And then, you split a 4-game series against the White Sox. So you go 4-3 on a road trip, and everybody is very upset right now. So that's just the state of the what's going on. So this is a basic overview. You have any thoughts?
Well, last week we talked about it when we were on the air. We were coming off the Giants series, right? And
Yeah.
those are some low-scoring, kind of tidy baseball games where one mistake or one big hit was going to change the game. And kind of noted that the KC series on paper looked like it might evolve into a continuation of that Giants series. And that's more or less what we got, the two very low-scoring games. Um, the Tigers, luckily, defensively played decently in Kansas City, kept that one big mistake from really hurting them, and were able to scratch out a 1-0 win on Sunday with Montero. I think they scored on a pass ball, right, or a wild pitch, whatever that was.
Yeah, it was. And it was almost didn't happen because it was like Zach McKinstry stopped halfway, and when Sal Perez didn't go after it, then he finally ran. But
Had that momentary heart attack. Like, what is he doing?
yeah, yeah. It's we had somebody last week talk about they can they keep winning these 1-run games, and like the way this past week went, it's entirely possible that they could have gone 2-5 or 1-6 based on the way the games went. I guess it would have been 2-5 no matter what, because those two games were good. But they keep finding ways to win, and I wouldn't argue that they're not that they're playing great right now, but there are reasons behind it. I think not necessarily fixable reasons. In some of the base running was annoying during this series, but I do want to give credit to the White Sox. They got blown out in that first game, and that was bad. But they're developing into kind of a scrappy bunch there. Like I don't know how many of those guys are going to be parts of the future, but they've got some interesting arms, and they're getting some interesting young hitters.
Burke was good today. Shane Smith was pretty good the other night. He looked pretty solid. I mean, they didn't look like they were faking it. The Tigers' offense is in a little bit of a doldrum right now. People are worried about the bullpen a lot. To me, the bullpen's hanging in there. They have more good games than bad games. It's the offenses that's been pretty quiet, other than the one big explosion in Game 1 against the White Sox.
Yeah, it was yeah. There was a 13-run game, and then they had 7 runs in the first game against Kansas City. But yeah, what it is honestly is if you look at it, what's going on right now is the 3 guys that we didn't really expect to contribute this year have stopped contributing.
Yeah.
That would be Spencer Torkelson, Javier Baez, and Trey Sweeney. Now, it's all to different degrees, but I can, I put up the numbers, or I looked at them. So in the last 2 weeks, Torkelson has a 68 WRC plus. He's 6 for 43 with a double and 2 homers, 6 walks in 16 games, or 16 strikeouts in 12 games. Sorry, so 6 for 43 is not great. Baez is a 32 WRC plus. He's 8 for 41 with 2 doubles, 0 walks, and 11 strikeouts in his last 12 games. That seems like the Baez we remember, unfortunately. And Trey Sweeney is a negative 24 WRC plus. He is 4 for 33 with 1 walk and 11 strikeouts in his last 22 or 12 games. So, those guys who were producing earlier in the year, you hope that they figure it out a little bit. I think we probably have more hope for Torque than Sweeney and Baez. Uh, but
Torkelson, all throughout the year, in the first couple of weeks, I noted that he hadn't popped up yet. Because that was always my annoyance in years past. He pops up a
yeah,
fair amount. And then about 3 weeks ago, I looked at it again, and he was still well below his career number. And I have not looked, but what I just the sense I'm getting, a couple of those pop ups are coming back into his game. I don't know if his timing is off. And if they're not pop ups in the infield, they are shallow fly balls to the outfield. So
yeah,
same thing. And so he's just in a bit of a funk. Um, you know, it can all change tomorrow, right?
hmm
One of the Cubs have a TBD starting. He might get some good at bats against some bullpen guys. Who knows? But yeah, Torkelson has slowed down, and Sweeney just,
yeah,
ooh, it's rough
yeah.
right now.
He
He's a tough
looks
watch at the moment.
he looks completely overmatched. Yeah, and it's unfortunate. You know, he always seemed to be staying afloat, and I've talked about it before. Where like he'd look rough like this for stretches, and then he would go like have like a 3-hit game and be okay for a while, and that just hasn't come. And yeah, I mean I don't think they have any real answers. They could play McKinstry at shortstop every day, I suppose,
Mhm.
but I think you do that and he'll eventually get exposed too. But it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, I guess, if Sweeney went down and tried to work on his swing in Toledo. It's just, I think we want him to learn how to hit big league pitching, and it may be that he can't ever, but uh, you know,
When he had that hot streak versus the Angels
yeah,
and the
the
White
Rockies.
Sox. Yeah, it was like I think it was like 10 for 17 in one stretch, and that obviously perked up all his numbers across the board. And I just thought his swing looked a little less mechanical.
hmm
And now lately, I was trying to watch this the other night. It has that little dip and pause thing
Yep.
that
Yeah,
drives me nuts. And it looks a little bit more mechanical based.
his swing has always reminded me of Don Kelly's swing for a reason, for some reason. Like it's just kind of like this weird flat. I mean, he hits the ball on the ground all the time because
Yeah,
of the swing path, and that's just who he is. I think he hits the ball hard, but if you can't lift it, that doesn't do you a whole lot of good.
maybe he needs to go to the Riley Green School of the uppercut. I don't know.
Yeah, well, something, yeah, somewhere in between it would be nice. But yeah, so I mean, he's kind of been a punching bag. Whenever the Tigers start losing, and they lost 3 out of 7 games,
Yeah,
um, people start looking for scapegoats. You got Andy Ibanez, who's just 3 for his last 25, not really hitting lefties the way you want him to, and that's kind of his main job. He's turned
yeah.
into a pretty solid defensive third baseman, so that helps. But they need somebody that they sent Malloy down. That was one of their two kind of lefty mashers, and if Ibanez isn't going to do it, then they need to figure out what they're going to do there.
Well, obviously, and them, Ibanez gives them more defensive flexibility than Malloy. So I get that. But yeah, I like Malloy's at bats more often than not. And I think Ibanez, if I'm not mistaken, has an option left.
He does.
So it would not have made me sad if they had sent Ibanez down to get him working, get him going, working on stuff, and let Malloy keep getting at bats in the majors. Um, I would say a good 3 times out of 5 or 4 times out of 5. If you're going to pinch hit for Kerry Carpenter against the left-hander, at the moment, I would be a lot happier watching Justin Henry Malloy saunter into the batter's box uh,
Yeah.
and take that at bat because it's typically at a leverage moment.
Yeah, we will see if they start. It's again, fans kind of take any loss and blow it out of proportion, and it feels like the world is falling apart. And if front office is generally much more patient and stuff like that,
Yes.
but we will see. There are some cracks showing in the foundation of this team. Maybe not in the foundation, but the edge, the
Well,
shingles are falling off a little bit.
exactly. You could need to get some guy up on the roof with a hammer.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But 3 years ago when Ibanez first came to Detroit, I remember very specifically in like May, he
hmm
had like an 0 for 38.
Yeah.
And the drumbeat was out around Twitter Nation with the Tigers. Dump Andy Ibanez. Move on.
Yeah.
Get anybody. I mean, people wanted to bring back Tom Verizon for him, and so But they hung with him, and he got hot in late in that summer. And then he had his moments last year, mashing lefties, and obviously culminated in the big hit against Josh Hader. But yeah, I think you're right. I think patience is a virtue. I think the Detroit front office has it and will exercise it.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, they're we can talk about the offense. It's kind of the thing that's bothering people, but they're, we got two consecutive pretty rough Casey Mize starts. Now he pulled kind of his classic, magic
Roto.
act, yeah, today where he just load the bases in each of the first two innings is at like 55 pitches and somehow didn't allow a run, and he got through that. And as you said, the bullpen did its job. Like people are very worried about the bullpen, and at times it seems rough, but they got him. They got him into extra innings. The Tigers just couldn't score. They had. It's awfully frustrating to see. You have a man on second with nobody out in the Manfred inning, the 10th
Yeah.
inning, and he never goes anywhere. And in the culprit this time, not the culprit, but if there's somebody in that situation that I would think would come through more times than not, it's Gleyber Torres, and he just stares at strike three. It's just it was just annoying. And then a couple of easy outs. Although Torkelson's flyout would have been a home run in two stadiums, Yankee Stadium and Steinbrenner Field.
Well, the ball just didn't seem like it was carrying that well in Chicago after that first
Yeah,
game. It looked kind of dead there. Yeah, I thought Torque got that one. I really did. But nothing you can do. That would have been the ball game.
yeah. But yeah, so they come home. They are gonna face a Cubs team that's one of the best offenses in baseball, and that should be interesting. They're gonna have to score some runs,
Mhm.
but they do have, you've got Skubal, you got Montero, you got Flaherty going in that series. You would hope it's against. I don't know who's pitching tomorrow.
Your TBD tomorrow.
Yeah, but then it's Jamison Tyon and Cade Horton.
Yes.
So I mean, both
Quality pitchers.
both high first round picks in their particular years, and but Tyon's had an up and down career, and Cade Horton has had an up and down ascent to the majors. But there's some talent there, so they're gonna have to figure out a way to score. But
He's
it
got
should
about
be
a 3.5 ERA right now.
it should be a very well attended series, I would think.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure about the weather here; it's been kind of rainy lately, but
A lot of
Cubs.
Chicago people will find their way in that stadium too.
Yeah, and this is the Tigers still have the best record in baseball, and it's getting warm, and people should be going out for a big series like this. But
No
we'll see how it
question.
goes.
I
Uh,
was not aware the Cubs have the second best winning percentage in baseball.
oh,
Um, yeah, so that's two heavyweights from both leagues going at it this weekend. Doesn't
yeah,
get
this
much
is
better than
this is it's a real Andre the Giant Hulk Hogan moment.
that. Yes.
But there's just a couple other things I wanted to bring up. There was some other interesting news. I don't know what news, but Casey Mize, the two consecutive rough starts. I don't know. Are you concerned at all there?
Well, he's coming off the IL. At some point, that's not an excuse anymore. I, he was facing a kind of a weak lineup today. And they gave him some fits. And again, though, to me, and again, I was driving and listening on the radio. I was watching some video um, when I had a chance. We're up looking at houses in Minnesota, which is a long story for maybe another podcast. Who knows? But he was falling behind a lot of people. He was 0-1, or excuse me, 1-0 on a lot of batters, especially early. And then the 1-0 would eventually become 3-1 on quite a few of the hitters as well.
Hmm.
And that's just no way to succeed. He wasn't jumping on people getting strike one. And it's an old baseball saying, but man, get to strike one, and the world gets a lot better.
Yeah, he was just fighting it. I thought he might. It's just tough to when you have a bullpen start and another guy coming off the IL, so he can't go deep into the games, and then you count on somebody to try to get you some innings, and as he's done many times in his career, he kind of gutted through it and did actually give you some length. But yeah, I mean, I thought he was going to be done. It was like one swing and miss through his first 55, 60 pitches or something like that. Just no deception. It was vintage Casey Mize, right? Like just unfortunately the control wasn't as advertised and there was no swing and miss, but hopefully he can and figure out a way to come back because they need him.
Now, again, his fastball didn't seem like he had any command of it, right?
Yeah.
Dickerson was all over that. Um, And for me, we've talked about it ad nauseum for 5 years about Casey Mize and his fastball. When
Yeah.
his fastball is playing up, he's going to be successful. When he's kind of scattershotting all over that thing and leaving it in places to hit, it's going to get ugly.
Yeah. Well, I did. I kind of glossed over it there, but yeah, we did get the return of Sawyer Gibson Long,
Mhm.
which he kind of performed as you might expect a guy. He's I think he made 4 rehab appearances in the minors, and he looked good in all of them. But as you might expect, I mean, he looked kind of tired rather quickly.
Yeah.
And I was a little bit surprised how quickly they brought him up. I thought he'd get another start or two just to get some more length and more innings, but they seem kind of quietly desperate, and so he did what he could. But it was I think what did he go 3 plus?
3 and 2/3, three and one
Yeah,
third, like that. Yeah.
and you saw the flashes, but again he's just building up. This is his spring training, but he's unfortunately has to do it in the rotation now until at least until Reese Olson gets healthy, and that's another kind of iffy situation there where he had to get a shot in his ring finger to help with the swelling. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe get that ring finger removed. Have you thought of that? Work for Mordecai Three Finger Brown.
There you go.
Uh,
You developed a hell of a changeup with that.
yeah,
But it's a long season. I think we all are resigned to the fact that most years you're going to need 7, 8, 9 starters. To take some start, at least a handful of starts here and there. Yeah, I was really surprised that he was back after just a few appearances in the minors. Um, but obviously they must have thought that he was looking good enough where he could get through an order twice, and he almost succeeded. So let's get him back out there next week and see how that one goes. You would hope he can keep getting incrementally a little bit better and go a little bit farther every time.
yeah, and I don't know. It is nice to have him back, and that's if he can get healthy and go out there and give you 5 6 innings, then that's a huge asset to have to add when you've got other injuries coming. But yeah,
So they did a bullpen game this week. They have a couple starters going short, under 5 innings. Let's say that they didn't make it through 5. Until you get Olson back and um, Mize hopefully gets on track. This club, are they going to have to keep mixing and matching and bringing up bullpen arms, random bullpen arms, like just to get through weeks? Or are they going to have to go out and get an established relief pitcher? Or do you think they're going to need to go get an established starter?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're seeing more and more evidence of Rogers' theory that they're just going to keep finding or trying to get options from within or grab people from the waiver wire. They had Ryan Cusick for all of one appearance. We
Yeah.
saw the Dylan Smith make his major league debut and then pitch a second
Mhm.
night, and you saw flashes of the stuff, but the command was not there. And then I think as his second appearance, he threw something like 80% fastballs, and that's no way to live.
No,
But
someone
uh,
said on Twitter, and you can't take everything you hear at Facebook. Was that the first time he's ever worked back to back days?
That's possible. It wouldn't shock me. They do not do that in the minor leagues, at least until AAA.
Ah,
He only made a couple appearances in AAA, right? So I don't
that's
think it was
true.
back to back. So yeah, that wouldn't shock me at all because they
That's a
have
hell
the
of a time to do it for the first time on a big league mound.
yeah, the way they set it up in the minors is they have a set number of relievers who are scheduled to go on each day, and
Hmm.
there's usually one kind of emergency long man
Sure.
if one of the starters gets knocked out early or if they go to extras or whatever. But after that, you're seeing position players in games that are tied or where they're ahead just because they don't want to waste any more pitches. So, yeah, that would be interesting. Now it's yeah, like I said, it's always cool to see somebody make their major league debut. But 2 games and then he's back, and we've seen Chase Lee come up, and he got touched up the other day, but
Uh,
it was at the end of the game, and you know how those relievers work. They can't really get that adrenaline going unless it's close.
yeah.
Um, and it,
He's to me. I've seen what I like what we've seen. I mean, he's
yeah,
to me he's in the circle of trust until he proves a little bit more that he's not ready to be there. He looks really good, and I just think that funky delivery that plays well, especially over the short term. And when I talk short term, I mean once around the league, and that practically gets you through the season.
Yeah, yeah, and it, having any kind of different look is nice for a bullpen, I think. And like you said, when you need a key out against a righty, he seems like somebody who's going to really help you out. But and Tyler Owens is still on the 40 man. He has not produced terribly well in Toledo, and Tyler Madison is making his way back, but his fastball is in the low 90s right now. So I don't know if they can rely on him coming up. But we'll see. Rogers talked about Matt Seelinger, and Colin did an interview with him, and he interviewed him, and he also did a breakdown of him, so that was good. But yeah, there's always more arms. It's just I do think at some point, as you suggested, it wouldn't be bad to go out and get an established arm in some capacity, a bullpen starter, whatever you need.
And the thing is, most contenders, and I think it's fun that we can pretty much call the Tigers a contender right now. We weren't there a year ago, that's for sure.
Yeah,
Most contenders go out and get a bullpen arm. So we're not breaking new ground. Nobody on Twitter who says get a bullpen arm right now. Nobody is, a Mensa member on that. Most contenders go get bullpen. And I think the Tigers are in that case. You said many times over the years you don't need a quality closer to finish fourth, right, or something
yeah,
like
yeah,
that. But you do need a quality bullpen arm added to your bullpen when you're trying to go places. So I think we'll see it.
yeah. So and let's see what else. The only other thing is, and this will learn me to say never. Colt Keith playing some third base, just out of nowhere. And it was something that people had always been asking. Like it's right up there with people asking if Winslow Perez can play the infield again. And I guess I'm never going to say never to that either.
He's got second base tomorrow night.
Yeah, yeah. We're like, well, there it is. Then Winslow has provided a nice little spark coming back. I think we kind of expected. We didn't really expect him to come back, but then Veerling went down. But he and Parker Meadows have kind of a knack for sparking the offense a little bit. But we're also
They
not
also
seeing him
have
every
a
game.
knack for almost running into each other. It's
Yes.
unbelievable. They've carried it over to this year. It looks like a dance they're doing out there. It's crazy.
Yeah, and Wenzel, has some base running issues, but he's always played kind of fast and loose, and that's what we see. But yeah, so I guess one other thing is there was a move in the minors today where they called Troy Melton up to Toledo and Kenny Serwa, the knuckleballer, up to Erie. I'm not counting on anything from Kenny Serwa this year. He's a knuckleballer, but whatever. I like to say that you don't know though if those guys are actual prospects until they're in their third year in the majors.
We don't know if he's Ari Dickey yet, right?
Yeah, but Melton, had some bumps in the road, but ultimately looked solid. He threw a lot of pitches. It was 4 2/3. Gave up 2 home runs in the second, but ended up with 7 strikeouts, no walks. Fastball touched 98.6.
Well, there you go.
So he hit 98 a couple times. It's like 9 whiffs, so not a ton. I think he threw like 80 plus pitches, but you see all the pitches are there. It's a nice arm, and so it wouldn't shock me at all if he comes up either to start or if he's a kind of bullpen guy at the end of the season. The way they did with Job.
I was thinking that. I mean, I was thinking about Herder. A
Yeah,
starter in the minors comes up and joins the bullpen and can get you, 4 to 6 outs.
yeah,
Uh, that would be a nice weapon for the Tigers to add. And if he's throwing 98 with some decent pitches around it, yeah, I think we're seeing all around baseball now. They're not wasting bullets in the minors. If he's ready, let's go.
yeah. There are some kind of similarities to Ty Madden in a way. He
Mm-hmm.
he throws like 6 different pitches, and all of them will look like plus at times, but sometimes they do not look very plus, and they're in the wrong spot. But he's just he's a big kid, and the baseball just looks like a pea in his hand. It's hilarious. He just looks like he's engulfing it. But yeah, and that's a really nice arm to have. And like I said, he may come up and help. Let's see. We got Jacob Lewis says, is Manning done being called up for these short Detroit stints? It sure seems like it. He's been working exclusively out of the bullpen for about 3-4 weeks now. He'll show some flashes, but it's still Matt Manning. Like, he's throwing a little bit harder, and he'll get 3 outs in one outing, and then the next one it's a leadoff triple and like 2 walks, and it's just not consistent, and it's unfortunate. But who knows? I mean, I wouldn't. Again, I'd never say never. I think we may see him again, but he doesn't seem to be among like the top 3 or 4 options right now.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll teach him something new, but that seems to have been an issue for most of his career.
Yeah, you just would think if and I agree they should try something new with him, but you think they would have done that already. you know,
Yeah.
if he was going to catch on to developing some kind of magic cutter or something.
Yeah, so it's unfortunate. And then, but I don't know. Like once again, Tigers went 4-3 in their last 7 games. It's okay. Anytime you have a winning road trip, I think you should be happy. So we don't have. We may have the music in here, but I don't know how to access it. So just pretend like you're listening to some a fun theme song about inside the numbers, and we will go inside the numbers now. Now, I don't know if you have one or if you want me to go first.
Oh, you go first.
All right. So people have kind of mentioned this, but my inside the number is 425, and that is the career minor league on base percentage of Chase Mydroth, who was absolutely annoying in this series. Couldn't have been more annoying. And I think Tigers fans are probably going to learn to hate that guy a lot over the next 5-6 years, right? Because as I said, this White Sox team is looking kind of scrappy, and it kind of starts with him doing his Stephen Kwan impression. He went, what did he go? He went 8 for 13 in these 4 games with a double and 5 walks.
Yeah, he was on base 13 times in 4 games.
13 times in 15 plate appearances. The only blemishes for him were that he got caught stealing twice, and he's an interesting player because he always performed, as I said, career 425 on base percentage in the minors, but he was never really like a highly ranked prospect because there's not a ton of power, there's not a ton of speed, and he was kind of like a throw-in, the 3rd or 4th piece in the Garrett Crochet deal, and he's already at 1.4 WAR.
Yeah.
And probably more after today, after going 2 for 2 with 3 walks today. So, yeah, I mean that's been a really nice addition for the White Sox.
I think part of it is he's not a lean, mean looking athlete. He's a little puffy.
Yeah,
He's a little puffy, and he's just. It looks like he's just gonna be one of those guys who gets the job done, and is not a premium athlete, but is a ball player.
He's going to Ron C us to death. Although Ron C, I think, had some power, didn't he? And some speed, despite being a penguin. So yeah, that's my number. Yeah, hopefully he doesn't become like the next Stephen Kwan in Nick Punto's body, but it may happen.
Well, for me, I'm going to dip down into the minors. Kevin McGonigal was the sensation, right, all week long on Tigers Twitter. With special thanks to Chris and Raj for doing all the clips that helped spur all the McGonigal love. It seemed like he was getting hit every time you'd refresh the page. Oh, there's McGonigal getting a double. There he is getting a home run. Right now, he's cooking along with a 500 on base percentage this year. So that's the number of the day, 500. The guy also, if you want to put another number on it, I think he was number 9. He's the number 9 overall prospect at Baseball America now as well. So they've moved him into the top 10. And, I think the Tigers had 3 guys in the top 30. Unfortunately, one of them was Bryce Rayner with the pretty bad injury the other night. Looked very similar to Cole Keith, also diving back on a pickoff play a few years back and kind of messed up his shoulder a bit. I put a tweet out, and I'm sure I wasn't the only one who thought this, is I don't think I'd have my best stars diving back into that base anymore.
Yeah.
If you get picked off, son, that's okay. You just keep getting on first. We'll enjoy that. And we'll get you to the minors and not wreck your shoulder.
Yeah, somebody needs to invent a telescoping base or something like that where you can lean back to it and it crunches. But, yeah, that's actually in my good, bad, and ugly today, which we can move into if you would like to. I will say we've got a couple comments here. We'll touch on these.
Yeah.
R1VJ4 says, "What's up with Jake Rogers? Defense is great. Bat is stuck in spring training. At least Nito would give some solid at bats." I mean, I think if they had Thomas Nito playing regularly, he would eventually stop with the BABIP luck. I think his BABIP was like 500. Jake Rogers has always been limited offensively. When he's at his best, he's walking a little bit and hitting for power, but striking out a ton. And he has been clearly and completely passed by Dylan Dingler as the main catcher at this point, and so he is
Yes.
now catching like twice a week. And it's
That,
just going to be the way it is. He's now your backup catcher, so you don't particularly think about his offense.
he's just going to have to get used to, you were alluding to it there, not having the daily drumbeat of opportunity. He's going to have to adjust to getting 8 at bats per week or whatever. And not everybody does, and I have to imagine it's very difficult to get sporadic playing time and uh, continue to produce, especially when you're someone who has been used to playing, 5 games a week instead of two.
Yeah, and it is kind of wild. It is a real Wally Pipp situation where
Yeah.
Dingler got the opportunity and has run with it. And Dingler, you see what from Dingler now is, the one knock at one point was like, he's not walking at all and he's swinging at everything and he's starting to get a lot more selective. He's not Juan Soto out there, but he was never quite this aggressive in the minors and used to walk at a decent rate. In fact, I think walks were like the only thing that kept him valuable in Double A for one of those
Wow.
years. He also got hit a bunch, so kind of hidden on base ability. So yeah, I mean, I think that he's probably got a pretty high BABIP right now that's going to come down, but I think it may be offset by a little bit more patience and a little better, getting himself into better accounts and stuff. Yeah, he does. He looks like he could very well be an all-star this year, which is wild.
The thing I'm liking about Dingler that I notice is he can go to both all fields.
Yeah,
He's not a dead pull hitter. He's shown some ability to inside out one and get a base hit to right field when needed, or even a little bit of power out to right field. So yeah, it just shows. Uh, what was it? His draft year was what, 2020?
yep. He was the no 20. Yeah, 2020. Sorry, yeah, he was the second
2020
pick after Torque. Yeah,
Torkelson here, yeah.
yep.
They don't all come on fast. This not everybody, needs to be Jack Caglione.
Yeah, and particularly catchers, right? People always say that catchers take time. What's funny though is I swear when we saw found a scouting report I wrote for Prospects Live about Dylan Dingler after they drafted him, and then after like the first few months we saw him in West Michigan, and we were writing about it back then. And we said he looks like an everyday catcher who if he hits could be an all star, and we were like, oh, he goes to the opposite field. I still remember we were at a game where he had an opposite field home run to tie it in the ninth
Okay.
at West Michigan. It was like, what? Um, yeah, and it's funny. Like, I go back and read the scouting report now, and it looks like who he is. It just 4 years in between, it was all different directions, and it was kind of crazy. Like, yeah, but it's a good reminder of you don't necessarily give up on guys who have potential, and
Right.
he's looking
And
great
he's
right
got
now.
a gun behind the plate too. He made a throw he made in Kansas City last week right on the bag was incredible. Although to not to got to leave him put him in there as well. The next day, Jake Rogers matched him. He put one right on the bag for a take
Yeah,
at second. And, those are big outs and 1-0 games.
yeah. Jake Rogers is still a very good defensive catcher too. So like, it's a you know, you'd love for all your catchers to hit. It's very rare to have two who can hit. Having one who can hit and also play defense is pretty special, so that's good. And Deadly Ninja B says, yes, Colt Keith was 2020 also. He was. That
Yes.
year's draft was Spencer Torkelson in the first round, Dylan Dingler. Then they took Daniel Cabrera, who was no longer with us. Then they took Trey Cruz. Then they took Gage Workman, who's been to the big leagues. And then they took Colt Keith. So 4 big leaguers in one draft. Not too bad for those guys. They did have the first overall pick and have a lot of money, so that helps. But,
Now, does Trey Cruz get a cup of coffee at some point?
I don't think so.
No.
I
Okay.
think given that
At least not here. There's-
yeah, I mean, I think he's coming up on 27, and he's played very well for several years now. But he's also very streaky, and they've had the main thing is that they've had many, many opportunities to push him out of Double A, and they haven't. And I
Mhm.
just kind of take that as a sign that they don't necessarily think he can play. It's kind of like Andrew Navigato, right? Like
Yeah.
people kept wanting for Navigato to come up, and he's having a terrible year now, which is unfortunate. It's just the way it goes sometimes with these guys in the minors, but. And Stando says, wait, he says, I miss Nito. Yeah. He also says, hello, all. Hello, Stan.
Hello, Stan.
So, with that, let's, we can go into our good, bad, and uglies here. If you would like to go, you may, if you need
Sure.
more time.
No, no. My good Jackson Churio in
Yeah.
Milwaukee. had gone through quite a slump, has really, really come out of it. He's on a daily basis now, grinding out 2 to 4 hits, showing his power and speed. I just enjoy watching. To me, if I was building a team or just a team that I want to watch every day, I want athletic outfielders to watch on my baseball team. Parker Meadows would always have a spot on my baseball team. A guy like Jackson Churio, Ronald Acuna, I really think Churio, uh, he still swings at a lot. Okay, but I think it's getting better. I think this hot streak he's on is proof because he's also drawn a couple walks in there. But yeah, I think even though the Brewers are on a losing streak, Jackson Churio was on a big winning streak, and he's a guy to watch. If you're out there, if you can get him in fantasy or something, I would look into that pretty quickly. Um, the bad is not so much the bad. It's just that when you look around the AL Central right now, uh, Jack Caglione is coming. That's going to change the dynamic, I think, a little bit in Kansas City. It'll be interesting to see, how he adjusts, and if his power bat plays right away, because that's what Kansas City desperately needs is an influx of power. That's why it made sense to bring him up, in the opinion of many. Um, that could be bad news for the Tigers because KC is that kind of team. Sometimes we don't know how they do it, but they get on a roll. Like when they won 15 out of 17 earlier this year. If Caglione spruces up that lineup, I think that is what would get Kansas City back into things. And obviously, Bobby Witt needs to heat up as well. Um, my ugly, I was actually going to just forego the ugly. I just wanted to tell people who listen periodically, and they know that I'm broadcasting from Iowa, right?
Hmm.
And my wife has gotten a really great job. We're moving to Minnesota this summer. So I guess maybe the ugly could be my broadcast schedule. For the next couple of months, I could be off and on. We'll have to see what we can fit in. But we're moving to Minnesota. We're leaving the great state of Iowa, which is unfortunate because we love the people here in Iowa. It's been really one of the best places I could have imagined living. But we're going back to southern Minnesota now, and we're pretty excited. My wife's gotten a great job. It's going to be a great challenge. We're in the buying process of a house right now, which is always stressful, but also exciting. We're trying to get the house packed up, which is not exciting at all. Let me tell you. I've gotten to see the bottom of this dumpster that we keep filling with crap accumulated here in Iowa. So just wanted to let people know that when you see my Twitter handle Uper in Iowa, that's probably going to be changing here in July.
Uper him in.
Yes.
Yeah, that's at least you're staying in the Big Ten footprint, the Big
Well,
Ten West.
the one good thing is the MLB blackout situation for me.
Oh yeah.
It improves the moment I move. It goes from having 6 teams, including 3 in the Tigers division, blacked out for streaming here in Iowa, down to 2 in Minnesota, just the Twins and the Brewers. So that's going to be a really nice gift for me. Is I'll be able to stream games, especially against the Royals and the White Sox, and not have to hunt around on television for it when it's sporadically on.
Nice. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you talk to people of a certain age now, and they feel like they may never own a home, and I feel for them. But other people, there are the process of trying to find a home and finding one you like and putting a bid on it and not getting it. That's not a whole lot of fun.
That just happened to us last week.
Yeah,
House we really wanted, and we got beat out by a multi generational family who kind of pulls their money
yeah.
and pays cash, and I can't pay cash.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Yeah, people will come in with 50 grand over asking price of cash and don't want an inspection, and you're like, how are you supposed to compete with that?
Yeah,
And then selling, fortunately I have not had to sell a home under duress. That's probably not a whole lot of fun either. But
yeah,
anyway, yeah. Well, best of luck to you guys, and congrats to your wife on the job. That's awesome. My wife
yeah.
right
She's the
now.
vice president of a college up there. Pretty cool.
Yeah, there you go. Frat parties and no, my wife is in Muskegon right now she's running for like president of some sort of clerks association of Michigan.
Oh,
she,
nice.
she
Okay.
had to give like a campaign speech and stuff. I'm like, all right, go for it. Do
Cool.
your thing. So these wives,
First step to the governor's house.
This is the Motor City Metrics Emasculated Males Club.
Yes.
But so my good, bad, and ugly. Are you done? Sorry.
Oh yeah, yeah. You
Yeah.
bet.
I didn't mean to
No,
interrupt
no.
if you weren't.
All good.
My good, I'll go kind of off the board here with TJ Friedel, who the Tigers are going to see here in a couple weeks. Outfielder for the Reds. The counting stats aren't necessarily crazy, but over the last month, he's hit 356, 473, 555, 3 homers, 5 doubles, a triple, 2 steals, 19 walks, 19 strikeouts. Just a really solid major league player. It's been worth 1.5 WAR over the last month, which is
Mhm.
top 10 in baseball. And he's always been a fun story. We may have talked about it on the show before, but he did not get drafted, and then after the draft, everybody realized, oh wait, he's eligible. Like it was a very weird thing. They didn't understand that they could draft him, and so I think he still owns the highest amount of money ever given to somebody who wasn't drafted.
It's kind of
Um,
the Joe Jimenez story, right?
yeah, a
Wasn't
little
Joe
bit. Yeah,
Jimenez in a way?
yeah, yeah. Joe. Yeah, he didn't get drafted, and I think they got like $150,000 bonus. I think Friedel's is like 750 or something like that. But then, yeah, for a while he was just kind of kicking around the minors. Didn't look like much. I think he may have even made the 40 man and got DFA'd, but he found a power swing a couple years ago, and now he looks like a really legit. He's like a 2020 guy, and part of that is
Yeah.
playing in Cincinnati, but he's been really good. So good on him. My bad is something that you touched on earlier, and it's Tigers' injuries in the minor leagues. Now, injuries always suck no matter what. But something it just feels sadder when it's in the minors for some reason. And you talked about it. Bryce Rayner had been such a bright light in the minors this year, and really fantastic prospect. And part of that is how strong his arm was as a shortstop. He just has an absolute cannon, and to see him dive into first base and immediately recoil in agony,
Oof.
and can't move his shoulder. What is he walking across or off the field? And it's just like the worst possible thing you could think of. And as you mentioned, that happened to Colt Keith, happened to Carson Rucker last year early on. We didn't get to see it. Just a real bummer to lose one of your best prospects like that. But then beyond that, the next night, Hao Yu Lee takes a pitch directly to the face. I don't know. It looked like he was actually knocked out on the field. There was certainly a decent amount of blood to the point where they had to come out and like scoop the dirt away with gloves on.
Wow.
And this is the third time Lee's been hit in the head in the last 2 years. Happened to him twice last year within like 2 weeks, and this one was directly to the face. And I don't know, people online, so like, why didn't he get out of the way? What's wrong with his stance? I'm like, minor leaguers don't have great control because Patrick Lee in high A got hit in the head by a fastball today.
Mhm.
And as Roger and I were talking about it, like it seems like these are both Cleveland farm systems, Columbus and Lake County, and Cleveland is systematically attacking all our Lees. So watch
Yeah.
out, Bennett and Zach. And yeah, just it sucks. It sucks to see these guys in the minors get hurt and miss time because this is really important time development. It's one thing to miss 3 months in the big leagues after you've already established yourself. It's another thing to, you're 19, you're just learning to play professional baseball, and you miss who knows how long. We can hope that's not that serious, but it wouldn't shock me at all if Rainer's out for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I would think it looked bad. And with the way the Tigers kept McGonagall's injury under wraps, right? Tightly
Yeah.
secure information. I imagine unless Rayner goes under the knife, which hope he doesn't have to, but if he does, maybe that'd probably be the first time we ever get any information on what happened though.
Yeah, the Tigers have been okay about like once a month or so they release a minor league injury report, and that'll give you some information. But I imagine one of the enterprising reporters will dig up what exactly happened. Len Henning was kind of all over it. I think he just happened to be there at the games when it happened. So yeah, that's unfortunate. And then I will finish with my ugly, and we'll go with the Atlanta Braves, who today were up 9-3, and then up 10-4, and lost 11-10. And everybody was having a field day because the culprit for the most part was Scott Blewett, who gave up 3 home runs, although Raisel Iglesias then gave up the final few runs. And talk about having a bad day. Blewett was then DFA'd after the game. He's now been cut. Uh, and if you're Atlanta, I mean, maybe this is a fun reunion, but it doesn't warm my heart as an Atlanta fan. The replacement is Craig Kimbrell.
Yikes.
A great closer, but over the last few years, not so good.
No,
So yeah, it's an ugly situation. Atlanta, I believe, is what are they? What's their record? 27 and I just want to look.
34.
27 and 34. Yeah, so still they are 11 games out of first in the National League East. 11 games behind the Mets. They are 2 games behind the Nets. Not a great place to be for the Braves. So it's getting kind of ugly there.
Yeah, it is. It's getting late early there.
Yes. And yes, I guess you could say he lived up to his name. Yes, indeed, Scott Blewett. It's always been a terrible name for a pitcher. It was this
There
moment
was
was
a,
just yeah.
there was a field goal kicker named Blewett too a few years ago. Played for
Oh
Pitt.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's just why not just change your name?
Yeah.
But I did. There was a question earlier. I think Stan asked an interesting question. Here it is. Now this is a tough one.
Okay.
Who are the 4 prospects most likely that Scott Harris would offer in a trade? So yeah, I mean it depends on what we're talking about. I don't think that they have any desire to part with Clark, McGonigal, Briseño, or Lorenzo, and Rayner too. So that top 5, I would say that there's a slight chance that they would part with one of Briseño or Lorenzo in the right package, and maybe Lorenzo because he's not, they just traded for him, but he's
Yeah.
more likely to catch than Briseño. At the same time, you've got Dylan Dingler right now. He
Yeah.
looks pretty good.
5 more years of control at least, right, with him.
So yeah, of the top 5, those would be the guys that I was thinking. I would think Max Anderson would be a prime candidate at this point. He's done really well for himself hitting this year. He's hitting for average, hitting for more power. He's still not a great defender at second base, but a team that could use some offense, some bats in their system.
Mhm.
Like I keep bringing up, and I'll keep doing it until they actually make it happen. Is go get David Bednar from the Pirates, send him Max Anderson. I think everybody says Jace Young. That's entirely possible. Like you could theoretically, if a team wanted, and you could do this, you could trade Young, Malloy, and a couple of prospects. Go get somebody who's interesting, right? Like you could trade these guys who could be big leaguers but don't really have a place in the Tigers right now. Malloy's not technically a prospect anymore, but I think you could put him in a package. And after that, I don't know.
Well, and again, it all depends on what teams end up selling.
Yeah,
I look at Texas, and does Texas look to sell? What do they want? Because Harris and the Rangers have made some deals.
hmm
There's open
that's
communication.
true.
Um, how would Nathan Eovaldi look in that Tiger rotation?
That would
The
work.
Tigers have whatever it takes to get him if they want to.
Yeah. Yeah, they could. Yeah, it would be fun. Get Evaldi. They just sent Kumar Rocker back down. Yeah, Eugenio Suarez, I think, would make some sense. We've talked about him a bunch over the last couple of years, mostly because I thought he was a free agent and I was wrong. This guy, Connor Four, says, I would rather have Seth Halverson than Bednar. I would too. The Rockies are the Rockies, and Halverson
Right.
isn't a free agent until 2031, so I can't picture them trading him unless something crazy happens. Whereas
A lot
Bednar,
of
I think,
foresight in that organization.
no. And, normally you don't see relievers get traded with that much time left, although I think Lucas Urseg has a lot of time left, team control left, and he was traded last year. But it's possible, but yeah, I don't see the Rockies. You know what? I could see the Rockies giving Halverson like an extension because that's who they are, right? Like, if he's available, go get him. That would be great. But yeah,
The other guy they have in Colorado is that Agnos.
yeah,
Uh, I
Zach
forget his
Agnes
first name
or
right now, but I've seen him actually pitch a couple of times. He's got some pretty decent stuff.
yeah, it's Zach, isn't it? Yeah,
Zach
remember
Agnos, there you go.
remember him from East Carolina.
Could be.
I think he was a two-way player too. But yeah, it's I don't know. Like Colorado, they have some players, but I just don't trust them. Colorado's that guy in your fantasy league who's insane. And it's pick somebody up off the waiver wire and then tries to trade you for your best player. Ryan Zefferjon again from the Angels. Yeah, I mean there are players out there. I don't really see a scenario where one of those top 5 prospects gets traded. And I don't think necessarily they would trade How You Lee, but I think you could if the deal was right.
Now, you know who had a better start the other day? Granted, versus Colorado, but Sandy Alcantara.
Yeah. Now,
I mean, there's talent to bet on there. And he's been roughed up a bit as he's come back, but he's looked a little bit better of late. It's a hell of a talent to add to the mix.
Yeah, I've been I've been trying to get the Tigers to trade for who is what's his other name? The other pitcher on Florida who throws a 98-mile-an-hour changeup.
Max
Um,
Meyer.
no, it's another Latino guy, Cabrera, I think his name is. I don't know.
Oh, Edward Cabrera.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, they've got some good arms there in Miami, and they don't. They just got swept by the Rockies,
yeah.
which is worse than splitting with the White Sox. I'll say that.
Kind of hard to do.
Yeah, but yeah, it's always hard to tell. So Walter said wasn't Bednar DFA'd earlier? He was not DFA'd. He was just sent down to the minors, and since he's come back up, he's been good again. Like I said, I'm not saying like he's the best possible option out there. It's just as we were talking about earlier. You don't need a closer or a particularly good reliever on the Pirates right now because you suck. And it's the old spoiler on the mail truck.
Sorry, Don Kelly.
Yeah, he's been ejected more times than Hentges in I think his entire Tigers career. But yeah, so I mean I'm sure like we're getting close to the draft is just about a month away, and then the trade deadline is coming up. We're going to be a lot of discussion about all this stuff soon, but it's still a bit too early to really kind of figure out who's going to get traded and as we've seen these injuries in the minors, who knows? All these guys could get hurt and then get nobody to trade.
But Jaden Ham, he wanted to know four guys. You said Max Anderson. That's where I was going to go.
I,
Definitely
I
Max Anderson.
I wouldn't have a problem with him trading Jaden Ham. I don't know if he has a lot of value right now.
Okay.
Unfortunately, he doesn't look terribly good in Double A. The stuff isn't any better than it was last year, and in some cases, it seems to have backed up a little bit. And he's getting hit pretty hard. I think he's given up 8 or 9 home runs. But again, he's relatively young, and if you think somebody else likes him, I could see them moving him. Maybe Melton, although I think they like Melton a lot.
Yeah, you got to give something to get something. That's the thing, right?
Hmm.
So, I mean, well, obviously they're not going to trade Rayner, and if with the injury, they're definitely not going to trade Rayner.
Yeah.
So, is How You Lee on the market if they have the right reliever there to bring to Detroit?
I would think so.
Hmm.
Um, Again, they just have too many bodies for second base right now, and they're really trying to get How You Lee to play third base, and he is playing there half the time, but he's made 9 errors in Toledo, and they've all been at third base. Um, he's just not terribly good over there. And I thought that Jace Young would never work out at third base, and he looked much better this year. So there's a chance it can work out, but yeah, it just feels like they have about 6 second basemen, and they don't need all of them. So How Lee, Max Anderson, Jace Young, any or all of those guys could get traded, and the Tigers wouldn't really even feel it. Honestly, like those are all guys who have solid upside, like maybe average players, but they're not going to be the future all stars or anything like that.
I just wonder if there. I need to do a deeper dive into it. I will, but I wonder, with some of the teams who are known to want to shed cash, I just wonder if there are some relievers out there with some contracts that teams want to move. Detroit doesn't have to give up hardly anything. Maybe a 17-year-old from Dominican.
Yeah, no, I mean that's true. That you've got guys like Frenyer Mantilla is an exciting young guy in Low A who's a middle infielder who you'd like to keep him around just because they haven't developed these guys a lot. But if you want to move him for a reliever, I think they'd be fine doing that. So somebody mentioned Roberto Campos. I think they would consider that.
Ooh.
These are all guys, kind of in the 20-ish, top 20 somewhere. But I don't know. Oh, maybe they won't trade anybody. Maybe Scott Harris will hoard his prospects like Smaug. And I've never actually read The Hobbit, but I'm pretty sure that's the name of the.
Me neither.
Yeah. And I didn't watch the movies either because they looked kind of rough. But I've heard of Smaug.
It's always going to be interesting to see if, and I mentioned this on our last show, I think, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago. I don't remember anymore. They all run together at times. But that the Tigers just came off a season last year, whether you believe it was a miracle or not, where they sold at the deadline, promoted internally, and made their run.
Yeah.
they want to try to replay that again. It seems like that'd be a precarious path to try to duplicate, but
that,
who knows?
that would be that would be wild if they trade Torres and Flaherty again.
But
Um,
yeah, I
yeah,
think trying to replicate last year without the sell-off. They probably won't do the sell-off part,
yeah.
but they might promote from
Like,
within
oh,
and
and the
try to
Tigers have
improve.
traded Gleyber Torres for prospects for some reason. Uh, I don't know. You got to sometimes you got to zig when other people zag.
That's right.
Here, we're getting close to an hour here. There's just the two of us. There's not a whole lot more to talk about. So we'll finish with this last question from Stan. What's easiest when replacing an underperforming player? Internal development, external trade, or keep giving the guy a chance to find himself, like Brisky needs to do. I think with someone like Brisky, first of all, relievers are always so volatile. You never really know what's going on there. But if you've seen a guy like they were trusting Brisky to get huge outs in the playoffs last year, so that's a guy that they know what's in there. They think that he can figure it out. I think you keep working with him on it. And if it becomes too sketchy and you need to send him down to Toledo, you can. But that's not somebody that I would go, well, Brisky, we're done with you. He's there are times when he's been really good.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas you talk about someone like Matt Manning, and they've tried and tried and tried and tried, and he's now switched roles. That might be somebody where you kind of throw up your hands at some point and say this just isn't going to work. You hate to give up on guys, but he's not a kid anymore, and the results haven't been there. Now, when you're going for a title, the easiest thing to do is to just not worry about development at all and just go get some established vets who are good players and hope that they don't come here and perform an Aubrey Huff or Jared Washburn. Not to bring up terrible memories. You hope
Yeah.
you get a Doug Fister and Anibal Sanchez, right? That they come here and they're absolutely, or Doyle Alexander, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you get that trade chip who really puts you over the top. That's the easiest way to make your team better. But it's also you got to do those makeup digs to make sure that they're good clubhouse guys and they'll fit in the culture. But it's easier than waiting for somebody to figure it out in Toledo. So yeah,
I'm always about continuing to give a guy a chance if you believe he's the long-term answer. Um, and especially when the club is performing nicely, this is the best time to let Trey Sweeney give it his best shot and see what there is long term. The club is operating at a very good level. I mean, their record is 42-23 or whatever it is right now, right? So, whatever it is. Uh, this is the time. I let that guy play right now.
hmm
They don't need to fix it. If the club, if they go on a 8-17 streak and they feel they have to change up the mix, well, that's fine.
yeah. I mean, conversely, I guess the other name there would be like Jace Young, right? Who they've given him two sort of semi-extended runs in the big leagues, and he
Yep.
hasn't hit. And as much as you want to give these guys some runway to figure it out, you can't necessarily. If you have a job to do, and in Young's case, it's getting on base and hitting for power, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
he's improved himself as a third baseman, but that's not what he's there for. He's there to provide left-handed power and get on base. And if he's not hitting for power, you kind of have to go and send him to try to figure it out. And so in Sweeney's case, and I know the metrics haven't been particularly great this year, but he's still mostly a fine defensive shortstop.
Exactly.
If he goes on a stretch where he's just booting balls left and right and can't get to things, then yeah, maybe you send him down because that's what you need him to do. But if he's still doing what you really need him to do, then you try to work with him to figure out the other stuff.
He had two games in a span of about 5 days where he just made some horrible looking throws, and I was
Yeah,
really worried about where that was going. But that seems to have corrected itself. It
yeah,
just one of those little things that popped up and has now gone away. Hopefully, it doesn't rear its head again.
yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, so yeah, 3 games against the Cubs, and then they're off to play the Orioles. Is that right?
I believe so.
Yeah, the Orioles who have won, I think, 6 in a row, is getting hot just at the wrong time for the Tigers. But yeah, that's the way it is. You got to beat good teams sometimes, or beat teams that are bad but playing well, like the White Sox. So
You had to
yeah,
know that the Orioles, just from a talent, man, when you start listing off who plays for them, they're not. They were 19-34 last time I looked, right before this streak started.
yeah,
Uh, you had to figure eventually they were going to come around and play some decent baseball. There's just too much talent there not to.
Yeah. So, but that's it for us, I think. Unless you got anything else to comment on, happy house hunting and so
Yes.
forth. And yeah, good luck to
Hopefully, have
you.
an
And
answer tomorrow. We'll see.
hope everybody out there is doing well and has a good weekend. I have to fly to Minneapolis on Tuesday.
Oh,
I am flying to Minneapolis. I am hanging out at the airport for about 2 hours, and then I'm flying home.
really?
Yeah. Yep. It all
At the
makes sense.
airport.
Yeah. I have to get a badge so that I can work at the airport behind the scenes. And you have to get those in person. I've done
I
it in
see.
Pittsburgh. So I go there, I get fingerprinted. I, I I had to fill out a report again that said I've never been convicted of airline piracy. I've never been
And I'm
convicted of
very disappointed in you. You've lived a boring life.
I've never smuggled explosives onto a plane.
Ah,
So, but yeah. Anyway, so we're all spending time in Minnesota. I think more than we'd like, but
yeah.
we'll see you. We'll see you next week. We'll be back. I think Raj will be back for the Motor City or the Tigers Minor League Report show on Monday, and then we'll be back pending Youp's travels. We'll all be back to see you guys next Thursday. But thanks for watching tonight. Stay classy, everybody, and we'll see you soon.
Good night, everyone.